Thank you. Good day and welcome to our today's discussion. We are looking at the evaluation of instructional resources. And when we are evaluating instructional resources, the thinking is that uh, instructional resources are many and they also vary from application to application or why they are needed. Also, when you look at the use of computers, is that they have so many applications. Some may be good for training learners, others may not be good for training learners. That is why we need to evaluate instructional resources so that we know which ones are fit for use for our learners and which ones are not fit, or when a particular application is fit for use and when an application is not fit for use. So basically that is the main reason as to why we are evaluating these instructional resources. And when we are evaluating them, we shall start with software in particular, and then we will move to the internet resources. So when you're evaluating software, we need to evaluate them so that you know which ones are intended for students. That is the basic reasons. But then when you are making a decision on which software to use, you want to base it on what is the desired learner outcome. You also want to know what is the appropriate of that application you are using, and also any other instructional issue. And when we are looking at instructional issues, we are looking at them in terms of which learners have special needs. Some of them could be having special needs like hearing abilities or seeing capabilities, or even just physical special needs. So those are the special needs we are talking about. There are also other students or learners who are more talented than the others, meaning that they are gifted, they can do more than the others. There are others who are a bit slow than the others, and also the environment in which the students are in. Like we normally say, there are those students who are in urban areas where they have access to computers more compared to those who are in the rural areas where exposure to computers is not so much. So with that difference in exposure, then if those students are in the same class, you have to determine which students are going to access which applications and which ones are need more training. And that is where we also talk about background in understanding of computers. There are those who can work with more complicated applications. There are those who need simplified applications for them to start learning and using them. So as an educator, that is the approach you are going to use to see which application is suitable for creating instructional material. Then, when you are doing this evaluation, you also need to understand which software categories are there. And then you also need to understand which evaluation criteria you're going to use, as well as the evaluation resources that you are going to use. So, when we look at software categories, we normally have three categories. We have the system software, we have the application software, and we have the utility software. When we are talking about the system software, these are the softwares that manage the computer hardware and software operations in a system. And they are like the operating system, whereby operating systems like Windows, Linux, or Android are normally implemented for use. Then we also have application software, which is used for specific data processing activities. And here, when we are talking about application software, we are looking at application software such as the ones which are common include Word, Excel. We also have PowerPoint, like the one we are using now. So these are the different application softwares you can come across, and we even have many others like we see them. So when we are talking about utility software, we normally say that is the software that is used for ensuring operation system application software. And these will include things, or they will include applications such as maybe the antivirus program, also an application like software development software, development applications like Java, and many others. So these are the general categories of software. Our interest will be on application software, which we normally use most of the time. And that is where here we have dealt with softwares. And these we are saying these application softwares can also be classified in terms of tools, which when we are talking about tools, we are talking about those applications that will allow students to create things like a word processor will allow them to create text documents, a spreadsheet and a database will allow them to record data and manipulate this data in different ways so that they can efficiently evaluate and analyze data. I think that is one you have worked with in the two assignments. And they are also integrated programs like the Word and the database where they are working together so as to create a different application altogether. We shall look at that as well. We also have the tutorials. These tutorials are going to teach students new concepts or skills, and the programs are going to provide instructions that are going to help students to learn this new concept or skill, as well as they are going to ensure that they can check student understanding by asking questions or providing practice questions so that the student can be evaluated before they move to the next level. So that is where we are talking about the tutorials. Then we also talk about tutorials not being designed to teach the instructional objectives of a program, but they normally teach a specific skill. So they may not have the instructional objective of the entire program or the entire course which you are teaching, but they are going to deal with a specific skill that you are normally using in your class. They are popular because they are going to help in things like languages. They also help things in procedural skills and also new concepts. Then we also have other applications that are used for drill and practice. And these applications are designed to reinforce concepts and skills that have already been taught. So once you teach students, maybe it is a mathematical process, then you can use this application to test them. Like you give several questions. I will give you some of these examples. You give several questions and maybe you want to see how quickly the learners are going to answer those questions or which method they are going to follow to give answers to those questions. So that is how those applications are normally. Then we also talk about some programs which are going to allow teachers to customize activities or their content so that they can be able to track student progress and provide different levels of difficulty. So if a learner is able to uh, efficiently or effectively work on a particular level of a problem, then the educator can be able to take them to the next level and they are able to also work on them. So those applications are going to help in giving immediate feedback that is going to help not just the educator but also the students assess their performance, and they can print records that are going to help the teacher to evaluate student progress. Then we have simulations, and simulations are normally used to provide students with the opportunity to interact in different environments. So a simulation, it could be like a platform or an application, maybe that is going to open an environment where the student can work with a text document or the student can work with a recording program that is going to record the activities that they are doing. And the one which the most important factor about simulations is that they are going to allow students to manipulate variables or instruments, like create a tool. Maybe they are going to create a chair or they are going to create a card. So it tries to simulate or it tries to create the real world environment for the student so that they can be able to work as if they were working on the physical object. It also encourages cooperative learning in terms of reflection, and process learning. So they have been designed whereby one classroom could be accessing the same application, the same platform, but each student has their own environment where they are working, and there they can cooperate with other students. Then we also have instructional games, and instructional games, they are going to provide the competitive aspect of students competing with their fellow students. So the computer or the time instructional game is going to reinforce the instructional content. Like when you have taught them a particular skill, and once you have taught them that skill, you are going now to let them uh, practice that skill using an instructional game. Sometimes it could be even a song, so that the student, they are going to use the song to perform that activity. Or it could be an instructional game like the one for snakes or the one for Monopoly, where they are creating new words, and when they create those new words, they are matched with what is being shown in the computer, and when they match, they score. So they are going to have levels, so that there are those levels which are going to educate or engage students in higher order thinking. Like they are going to conduct research, they are going to solve problems or evaluate information. Then there are those games which are going to focus on application comprehension or memory skills. Then there are those which are going to provide students with role playing opportunities like simulations, whereby there are going to be right and wrong answers. Then the students can choose which one is right and which one is wrong. So instructional games work that way. Then we also have other applications that are going to be problem solving. Those applications are going to engage students in critical thinking, reasoning, and higher order thinking. The content is not going to be there to look like what you are teaching in class, but it emphasizes on critical thinking. Like it is an application whereby if the student is using it, or that program, when the student is using it and maybe their level of thinking is low, it is going to provide questions that are at the lower level thinking capacity. If they seem to answer questions correctly, then it goes to the next level, and it keeps on going like that. That is why it offers discovery, reference, and other learning tools. Because when it is discovery, maybe it tries to give the learner what they do not know, but at that level. And also, what they know, they try to reference it with other material. And that is why that software is designed for research. Like the student is able to search for other similar information or other related information that can be used in their learning process. Then they also have reference programs for research, which allow students to access material in multimedia format. And we also have the encyclopedia there, which contains all the related information for the student at that level. So there we are going to have numerous problems, which I've said I will share with you. Then we also have the second step. After we have looked at the different types of softwares that we can use for application, then we come to the evaluation criteria. And when we are looking at the evaluation criteria, there are several issues which we need to consider when we are looking at this educational software. One of them is the instructional objectives. What do you want to achieve, and how are you going to assess that you have achieved that objective? How appropriate is that software? How is it going to be laid out, and how does it function? Then how are you going to manage, or how are you going to manage that software when you are using it in class, and does it have support features? So let us look at the instructional objective. You have to consider how the software will be used to meet the learner's objectives. Does the program provide a list of objectives? Does the program support maybe the standards that we talked about, maybe in your district or in your school? Then does the teacher have the program so that it meets those standards? Or how does the user meet those standards? Then does it have assessment features which are built in, or how are you going to assess, how are you going to ensure that the learner has actually used the application and they are able to do what they are supposed to do? How are you going to assess them? Then appropriateness. When we are looking at the appropriateness, we are looking at if the software is fit for use. That is what is meant by appropriateness, meaning is it fit for use? That is what we mean by appropriateness. And here we are looking at the readability level of the software. We are also looking at the design and appeal to the student, appropriate feedback. How does it give responses? Then does it include the use of icons and pictures so that students who are struggling or students with special needs, they can be able to use, maybe if they don't understand text, there is also audio so that even if you are not able to read, you can listen. Does it have universal access features such as touch screens, modified keyboards? Because we have said you could have learners who have special needs in your class. Then you're also considering needs of special students, whereby there could be native language help. Maybe students don't understand maybe the English language. Can they also switch to maybe Swahili? Also, encouraging cooperative learning, or can students work in pairs so that they can learn from one another? Does it have pictures and icons? Does it include both text and audio? Does it have universal access features such as touch screens, modified keyboards, and so on? That is what we are talking about in terms of appropriateness. Does it have that user friendliness? Then, when we are looking at that in software for instruction, then it should be unbiased. That is, it should have correct content, the grammar should be okay, and spellings, there are no spelling mistakes. Because if it doesn't have this, then that is not good software. The student will learn something, like there are those softwares, maybe they are teaching, but wanatumia Sheng. So if they are using the Sheng language, or what is it called? The language whereby it is not structured, the learner will understand that as the gospel truth, and that is wrong. So, as much as the content is teaching something good, it should always have the right grammar, the right spellings. The instruction should be easy to follow. Like if it is showing steps, remember you are teaching learners who are young, then it should be easy to follow. Maybe you give an instruction and you repeat that instruction after a short while so that the learner who had not heard it, they can also follow it. Students should be able to review materials or return to the previous screen. Maybe they had gone to the next step and they have forgotten what the previous step was. They should go back there and be able to read and understand it. It should also have cultural sensitivity. Culturally sensitive, it means that the learners should be able to be oriented in their cultural setup. If it is in the African setup, like somebody said that when you are using cartoons, why do they have to be white? Why can't we have also black ones? Because we are in Africa, whereby the black is the color. Also, equal representation of males and female and free from stereotypes. We talked of stereotypes like saying computers are for boys, or saying that maybe when you look white, you are more beautiful than when you're black. Those are the stereotypes we are talking about. Then, layout and functionality. It should be easy to use. The time it takes to learn the program or parts of the program should be very little. It should also be visually appealing, meaning that colors and placement of the items on the screen, it should be like well clear. Then it should be consistent and easy to follow. Students can work at their own pace and save their work. The sound and other media elements should be there so that they can enhance. So not they should not be distracting, but they should enhance the instruction process. And then the program should be able to work on the classroom computers. Then management and support features. Here we are looking at how do you manage or Once you have the software on your computer, how are you going to manage it? That is in terms of the teacher being able to customize the program and track student progress. Then the program should allow educators to enter their own content, that is in terms of customization. Then it should also allow the teacher to determine which problem set or activities are available in the program. They should be able to track student progress. Supplementary or instructional materials should be available to support the program. Then there should be technical support available. The other issues to consider are like, when do you is it able to connect with a printer? Is it able to connect with a microphone? Or ca- are there projection capabilities for the application, as well as requiring internet connectivity? Then the costs, it should not be that expensive. Also, it should have lab packs, or are there other copies that can be put for learners to use? Then the network version, multiple computers can access and use the same software from the school server. And then a license. This license, is it something you're going to renew every year, or once you pay for it, it is going to remain like that? So those are the consideration in terms of management and support features. Then lastly, you're going to look at the evaluation resources, meaning how are you going to evaluate your student? How are you going to ensure that learners have acquired the knowledge that you intended them to acquire? Terms of hands-on software review, where you can be able to find out whether the program is appropriate for students. That is input from colleagues and outside review. Then the software reviews can be found in educational journals, computer magazines, as well as database format, whereby any search for program specific to a grade level is also available. Like a program, when you install on your computer, it can be used for grade 1, it can be used for grade 2, and when you select a particular grade, the content is going to be appropriate for that particular grade. And then hands-on review, whereby you can have demonstration or a trial version for the software, so that before you buy it, you can be able to test it, and then evaluating it to determine whether the program meets the needs of the students. So those are the factors you need to look at. So thank you for your time, and I hope I have been able to explain this one properly.